I called Jeff Anderson and I let him know that I was assaulted in a phone booth in broad daylight by Steven Tyler, right about back then. And he he's an angry person inside because I had just at that time, he right before he assaulted me, I laughed at his lyrics. Apparently made him angry, but I didn't understand, and I wasn't laughing at him. I just thought, oh, that was the lyric. Okay, that makes sense. And I laughed, the kid. And we were right by the Warwick Hotel, and I think that's 54 and 6. That's right around there, the Warwick. Capital EMI Records was maybe just 4 or 5 blocks away. It was close. So it was a short walk, and we were walking down 6th Avenue. Thing I knew, we were walking by a phone booth, and he flung me in there. And he stuck his tongue down my throat, and his friends are looking outside. My friend was also watching. People walking by were watching, and he started groping me. I couldn't say help because I couldn't talk. He had me pinned against the phone. And I remember the faces of two men that were walking by and just stopped and stared. I was clearly struggling. Nobody said stop. Nobody said, get off of her, get off of her. And he was humping me, um, making, I think, like pretending he was actually having sex with me while his friends were outside laughing, people walking by just staring. Nobody said, get off of her. And nobody stopped him. So I was fighting back. I dropped my portfolio on because my kid's portfolio was blue. I dropped it on the floor and I got my right arm free. So I grabbed the back of his head and said, I'm struggling around. I'm thinking, get your knee up. He just suddenly flew back out of the phone booth. It just kind of flew back. I was in shock. I quickly turned around and faced the phone because I had to fix my clothing. And I thought, please, when you turn around, have nobody there. Please, when you turn around, don't have anybody there still looking. And so I put my clothes back together in the phone booth, not facing the street. And I picked up my portfolio and I ran out of the phone booth. And there was just a few pedestrians there staring. He said nothing, but he couldn't because his tongue was down my throat. This guy knows exactly what he's doing. I'm going to wear long things. If I pin a girl against the wall, nobody's going to see if our pants are down. You put your tongue down her throat, she's not going to be able to yell help. He's a professional. It was humiliating. It was shocking and mortifying. For a few seconds, you don't know what's happening, and then you know what's happening. And that was my first sexual experience with a boy or a man. People that we had around us, pedestrians and his friends or bandmates, whatever they were, they just watched. Apparently, that was a thing, or one of them, I assume one of them would have said, get off of her. But they did not. No. I didn't want to turn back and see all those people still staring at me and, to be laughed at while that's happening to you and you haven't had any sexual experiences yet in life. It's humiliating and degrading and extremely upsetting. It's very dehumanizing to do that to somebody. I certainly hadn't been looking for anything like that. Fixed my clothing back on and I picked up my portfolio. I was trying to run up to my girlfriend and say, I'm Hispanic, and she had a Spanish boyfriend. So when we didn't want people to hear, we would speak in Spanish. And I would tell her, are you going to stay with him or, quiere conmigo? You want to go with me? And I want to go home now. and I was trying to catch up to her. And I walked into the dark entrance on the side of the hotel is a bar. And I saw her going ahead with Brad towards the elevators, and I called her and she turned around. She just laughed and waved me off. And I thought, oh no, I can't get on a train. My heart was beating, and I felt like I was going to get sick or faint. My heart was pounding. My heart was just pounding. And so when she got in the elevator and I realized, control yourself, you got to get home. He came out of nowhere. He came out of nowhere, and I didn't even see him coming, but he must have been waiting for me because he jumped and pinned me again against the wall. And same thing, stuck his tongue down my throat. He started humping me, and I'm thinking, this is crazy. This is crazy. Get out of here, get out of here. But the doorman, he looked like, oh, this isn't right. He had that expression on his face. So I pulled the back of Steven Tyler's hair again. I got my right arm free, and he whispered in my ear something like, I'm going to my room to do something quick. I don't know what he said, but it was something that he was going to do quickly. And I thought, well, whatever, get away from me. And my heart was pounding again. And I thought, just sit down, sit down. Maybe there's a chance my girlfriend comes down in the elevator and we can jump in the cab and get home. Just sit down. And I was sitting in the hotel lobby thinking, what am I going to do? And he had a man watching me. One of his friends was watching me while he went up to his room. And I looked at the women behind reception, and they looked at me like I was some young hooker, and that I was there on my own volition. And they looked at me with such disdain and then contempt. It was mortifying. The man that was watching me used the hotel lobby phone. 2 seconds later, hung up and said to me in front of everybody in the lobby, okay, you can go up to his room. And I couldn't talk. I just shook my head. No. And he said, no, you can go up now. I'll take you. And I said, so I got up because he started to come for me with his arm out. And I thought, you're not grabbing me next. So I bolted towards the door where the doorman was, and he came towards me. He was 3 feet from grabbing me, and I thought, is he going to assault me and everybody going to let him? But the doorman flung me like a rag doll into one of the cabs they had outside the hotel, and he yelled at the driver, go. And thank God for that doorman, the only one with any heart, soul, or sensibility, And the cab driver just took off really fast. Now I was crying hysterically. And I said, I don't have enough money to get to Queens Boulevard. I only had $15. I said, I've just been assaulted. And he said, it's okay. Just give me what you have and I'll bring you down by, Forest Hills. And so when he did bring me near my home, maybe a half a mile away, I got out and I ran, and I didn't want to see anybody. I just ran home. And when I came home, I fell apart. Soon after I stopped eating, I fainted on Queens Boulevard. At the hospital, they told my mother, well, she's anorexic, one, and two, she has an erratic heart. So she has to see a cardiologist and she needs a psychiatrist. They must have figured something happened to me, because the cardiologist did ask me if something happened to me, but my mother did not want to pay for a psychiatrist, and she did not want to take me. And I never told her what happened anyway. Of course not my mother. So So nobody in my family except my little sister understood, what had happened to me. Because when I came home, she was the only one home. And by the time I walked in the door, uh, I mean, just let loose. And I just cried hysterically. I was so mortified, so dehumanized, denigrated, violated. I, you know, yeah, that was my first experience with a boy. And it was quite violent and it was quite degrading the way it happened. I want it released now, not only to back up Julia's account. It became a lot more than that. I want, first of all, I want his representatives to know, and they're women. Do they have daughters? Do they have children? Like, look what they're representing. He's quite sick in the head. What he did to me, and I'll tell you, he never even asked me what my name was. He it never even. It's like, I'm just going to use you like a tissue and throw you out. I couldn't have felt more used, and that was very degrading, and it was dehumanizing. And thinking of it, yeah, it took my appetite away. I absolutely think it's important to tell my story so that people who admire him, or they've met him for 5 minutes and he's pretended to be nice, he's not nice. He's quite sick in the head. And what he's very willing and happy to do to a woman or a young girl, I'm going to just say young girl, he cannot be allowed to do um, what he did to me. And I'm sure I was not the first to get thrown in a phone booth. He seemed to be particularly adept at that. You know, he knows, you pin them down, stick your tongue down their throat. They cannot yell for help. They can't scream. Very hard to squirm. For a skinny little guy, he was surprisingly strong. He was able to pin me for those minutes he had me pinned and was using me so that he could make a public display of me. I don't appreciate that. I'd like to tell him and his friends that. No, it's many, many years later. I didn't forget. Could any woman forget? Could any woman forget such a thing happened to her? I don't think so.